This one we're looking at estate trust and retirement planning for families. A conscious effort or a game of chance. All right? It wasn't my fault. I was born in a poor family and all that. Yeah. What is the way forward? Let me start by welcoming you all nice people. Tell me or tell us, how do you feel about this very discussion about estate trust retirement planning for families? A conscious effort or game of chance? Let's hear just brief comments from you on how you feel about this.
Thank you, MC. I think that this is the way to go to end poverty and to also ensure that the toil that we make in the course of work and all that actually is passed on properly to those we wish to have it. So that it is not, you don't work, you don't toil, and then at the end of the day, someone not deserving takes over. So I think this is very crucial, this is very important, and it's good we are all here.
Splendid.
Yeah.
Splendid. No monkey baboon story. Yes, Ms. Wa.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I recollect you saying brief comments, right? So
Yes,
I'll keep it as
very
brief
sure.
as possible. So the question was whether we think it's a conscious effort or it's a game of chance. I think that it depends on you. You will either decide whether it's a game of chance or it's a conscious effort. But then again, I would ask, why would you want somebody else to determine or decide where your hard-earned income or property should go when you have the chance to do that yourself? So I think the way forward, like my learned colleague has said, is to ensure that things happen the way you desire and the way you want it. So largely, I would say that it should be a conscious effort rather than simply a game of chance. Okay.
All right. Say, Saka, tell us something.
Thank you very much. So from where I sit, when I sat down, the first thing I looked at was the goal on the the flyer.
Yes.
And when I saw that this institute is trying to touch the lives of 30 million Ghanaians, it just took my mind that then this is not a joke. This means Peter means business, So as we sit here, we need to do whatever we can to support this movement. And I'm happy to be here today, and kudos to the organization for organizing this particular important event. Yeah, thank you.
Splendid. Mimi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
For me, I think estate planning is something you intentionally do and very essential. And I'm grateful to Peter and the team for doing this over and over again. I remember listening to this a few years ago, and then last year as well. So I got my parents to write their will because of that reminder. So I believe this program is very important. And I hope from here we
You
also
can make you laugh at her,
encourage-
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
That's pragmatic, right? Yeah.
We also encourage our family members and those around us to do that, to avoid drama when we pass on.
Great. So, are you ready, guys? Are you ready? Then put your hands together because we're about to start on full force. So, let's start with Mr. Ifa. Sir, acquiring wealth in this country or in this part of the world is very difficult. Africa has different terrains built for Africa. We're all built for Africa. You know why? Because it's only us who can survive this terrain. And having been in this condition and you get sick, acquired wealth and you are sick, and you don't have any power of attorney in place, what are the consequences in this dire situation? Having made money and then you are sick and you don't have any power of attorney in place, who is then to manage your finances? You can be just having a stroke. You can't talk, you can't move. What happens to your estate and your wealth?
Let's basically, we need to appreciate the component of the estate. And what happens really depends on the aspect of the estate you are dealing with. So when you talk of your personal estate, you are looking at, you begin with landed properties, houses, commercial stores and land. Then you come to things like monies at the bank. You look at investments you've made in shares in companies, either those being traded on a stock exchange or in private companies. You are also looking at your personal stuff in the home. You know, you're looking at cars. You are looking at some people buy guns and things. So these are the things usually you will find forming your estate. Now, you are sick. You don't have power of attorney.
Yes.
What happens to you? For instance, I think the ones that you will need immediate attention will be, for instance, dealing with your bankers and things like that. If you do not want to have the power of attorney or you haven't, you can actually go to the bank with somebody you trust and ask that that person be made a second signatory to your account, so that that person can also give instructions, authorize instructions on the account. That can be one. But then the ultimate or the best is to quickly, you don't have it, so quickly put together a power of attorney so that the person can operate the account on your behalf.
You know, the one clarity, when we say power of attorney, what actually are we talking about here?
Power of attorney simply means you donating your power or as to what you can do in relation to something.
Okay.
You can make it general that, look, everything that I can do, I give this person the power to do it for me. And it's governed by the Power of Attorney Act. There's a law that governs it. So you do that. You state what you want the person to do, and then you sign and have somebody witness it. Yes.
Okay.
So basically, that's the power of attorney. So you saying that I'm in this condition, and as a result, I donate my power to this person to act for me. You can make it limited, you can leave it. You can say that this person should do so for 1 year, and at the end of it, or you can just leave it open until such a time that you die. The moment the one who donated the power dies, the power of attorney also comes to an end. Yes. So you can do that. The best is just to have the power of attorney. If you cannot do that, then introduce somebody to the bank, have that person as a second signatory, so that at least you can be buying your medication and things like that.
So,
Yes.
so the condition we were trying to set was that in the situation whereby the person hasn't got a power of attorney, who is in charge to manage the healthcare and his businesses and all that? Is there any remedy in that situation if there isn't any like a power of attorney in this setting at all?
In the absence of power of attorney at all, you don't have one. So the one on the banks I've just explained. But the rest of your properties, it becomes very difficult. Because you are alive, you can give instructions even in your sick state. But it becomes very difficult because you can have, especially where a situation where you have very strong family members, you have children with different women, and they are all old and all that. So there's strong competition in fighting in the family. It becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult. So I don't see any remedy except you giving instructions on your sick bed, and as whether those instructions will be followed is another thing. It's another thing.
Interesting. All right then. Then we will now go to Mesima. Mesima, if someone dies with no will, because you know nowadays we want to buy skyscrapers, own vehicles, big lands before we will them. Yes, we don't will shirts and shoes. I mean, we want things of huge value, gigantic, immovable properties. If someone dies and hasn't done any of these, like no will at all, what happens behind him or her?
Okay. Thank you. So let me backtrack a bit before I get to the wills. So legally, when we talk about estate planning, it involves leaving the things that you have to the people that you want to leave it to, and then giving instructions on who should deal with it as you would like them to deal with it.
Yes.
And when it comes to estate planning, we have certain tools, legal tools that you can use. It includes a will, trust, we have living wills, power of attorney, power of appointment, all those things. Now, one of the things, as I said, is a will that gives clear instructions made by a person of sound mind, full age, on how they want their properties to be disposed of. If you die without a will, that means that now you have no power to decide, unfortunately, and the state will decide for you. And so we describe it as dying interstate. You're a person who died interstate, and the law that governs that is the Interstate Succession Law, 1985. That's the PNDC Law 111. Will decide how your properties should be shared. So these properties will go to your spouse, your children, your siblings, your parents, in the proportions that the law has laid out for you. So this is what will happen. There are extended circumstances where somebody who is not under the law directly entitled to anything in your property, but they can come and then make an application to be provided for from your estate, where they can show that they were dependent and they're in a position where they can't take care of themselves and they still need help. So that could be an option that's open to somebody who is outside of the provisions made by the law. So generally, that's what happens when you die interstate.
I hope you all noted down the act, the provisional act, right? The PNDC Law 111, right? Good. Let me ask this. What is so inconvenient about this law that a will should be the ideal act to prevent this inconvenience? What is wrong with the PNDC Law 111?
Okay, first of all, I want to say there's nothing intrinsically wrong with it. I mean, it's a good option, or it's a good alternative to not making a will. However, we know that, as Madam Doris said, it's unfortunate she's not here, that anything you want and desire is specific to you. There are no two estate planning or estate plans that are the same. So somebody will say that, okay, I want this to go to my parents or my children or my siblings or my spouse. Somebody else might think that, no, I don't want it to go to them for different reasons. It might not even be spiteful, but it might be that they may think that they don't need it. Or it might be that they've already made provision whilst they were living for all these people, and what is in their will should go elsewhere. So I think that will be the inconvenience. It might happen that where you want your properties to go to will not go there because the law will have to decide for you. And so when you make your own will, you get the opportunity to decide how you want your estate to be distributed. Maybe you want it to go to charity. Maybe you want it to go to your church. Maybe there are people you were taking care of whilst you are alive, and you want these people to be perpetually taken care of. Maybe you've already made provisions out of your estate for these people who will benefit again from your estate under the law. So all these things are a part of it. So it's just more convenient to make your own will.
So there is a connection between your will and thy will. Okay, so either it's your will be done or thy will be done. Choose your choice.
Yeah, so in this case, it's your will that will be done. So.
Absolutely. All right. So let's go to Mr. Ibrahim. Share with us one interesting case of where someone refused to actually put a will up, and then what was the experience afterwards? And then it comes to maybe about a retirement malfunction. Someone failed to plan properly towards retirement, and what is the aftermath? Let's hear from you, Ibrahim.
Thank you very much. Hello?
It's fine.
It's working.
It's okay.
So I just want to do this exercise, right? How many of us have like a bank account, an investment account, an insurance policy, or any other policies? Maybe you can raise your hand if you have a bank account, an investment policy, an insurance policy. No, any of them. Any of them. How many of us have? And how many of us remember who the beneficiaries or our next of kin or who we have entrusted that when we are not alive, they should benefit from that. How many of us still remember? Oh, and that's good. Because we have a number of cases where people have, as young as we are, open bank account or an investment account or a retirement account. And then as we grow, we forget to either amend it or change it. So we have pure cases where, as young as we are, we finish university, we fall in love, we even take our partners along to open the account. And because we want to show them that we love them, I'm writing your name, see, and we write their name there, And then after 5 years, there's a breakfast served, and then they move on, go on to marry. And they still forget. And then they pass away, and the wives and the children come to now demand the monies. And you go in there and you realize that there's a certain Akosia Manson's name there. And it becomes a clear problem. And these cases are real. I mean, in as much as it may seem funny, it is a very real case of instances where we just forget to update our beneficiaries. And so as young as we are growing, we should make a conscious effort that at every point in time, if there's a change in our beneficiaries or our estate, we go to the banks, we go to the insurance companies, we go to the pension trust to actually amend the beneficiary so that when you are not alive, because that's the only ticket we can pay the monies to the people. Otherwise, it becomes a challenge, and maybe that's where the services of the legal people comes in. We have a clear case where people have nominated their parent, for instance, right? And by the time they pass away, their parents have already passed away. So it becomes a challenge to now involve a legal person to look at either the PNDC Law 111 or the amended 264 or any of the Real Act or anything to now go in there and prove who the money should be paid to. So it's a problem within the industry. And when you get platforms like this, we always encourage you to ensure that you are nominating a beneficiary or the ones you have, you update them as and when you want to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And critically, on that area of when you're filling these forms, a young person is approached by this insurance company on campus. They are enthused. I'm opening an insurance account, yeah. And then your mother date of birth. My mother was born in July. Let me fix something there. Because the insurance agent wants to book you up quickly and then cash their sales up. So these kids will just put something there because the form has to be filled. Then one day, the same beneficiary who is the mother passed away, and then we have to go and you have to claim, right? The mother's voter ID card says May. She filled July. It's like, I regret ever getting insurance. And that's the very moment people begin to curse insurance companies that you are very wicked. You wanted me to feel like this. What is the advice when you are approached by this insurance agent? What should we be very critical of at this moment?
Thank you. So, yes, we've all been approached by insurance companies before, and they will say all the sweet words, okay? Let's just be a bit more conscious about the policies we buy and what it is tied to. So, for instance, if you are buying a funeral policy, for instance, it is tied to the age of the beneficiary or the parent, right? So if you said your mother was born, say, in 1950, by now she should be about, 73 years. Automatically, she doesn't qualify. But because most of us also want to ensure that our parents are put on the policy, we'll fix it a date like 1970, right? So when the parents pass, now we are investigating, and now we have to go through all the processes. But of course, when it gets to the claim payment, the insurance company has the decision to make, whether to void the claim or make some exemptions as, okay, I should have paid you like a 50,000, but because of this misrepresentation, I can pay you like a 30,000. So at that point, that's where the insurance company will show their commitment to the client, whether to void the claim totally or to ensure that, yes, you've paid some premiums, but I have to refund some amount because of this misrepresentation. So as customers, as clients, let's be extra vigilant. Let's be honest when we are completing the forms, because at the point of claim, all these issues will come up for us to defend.
Great. And let's go to Mimi. Mimi, I know you may have experienced one or two unfortunate instance where people who have worked for so many years, if you hear from them, they've worked so hard, yet there's nothing to go home with. If you look at their home life after retirement, you're like, this is sad. Share with us some of these very uncomfortable cases where you saw that if these were done properly, I think you should have been living a better life after post-retirement. Share with us.
Okay, so before I share something, I've heard of stories of even bank directors go on retirement and retire poor. Why? Because at the time they were working, they had maybe a driver, a car, all sorts of things in the form of allowances, given to them, maybe a very low basic salary, but because they had all these nice, things,
Allowance.
they were okay. But as soon as you retire, all those things are stripped off, and your pensions is paid on your basic salary. So if the basic salary was bad, it's going to be bad. And remember, this is someone who has had this lifestyle, having to reduce it. That comes with some psychological trauma.
Yes.
So it's very essential that we plan for our retirement, and like was said, it's personal because you know the kind of life you want to have. Now, I remember earlier when Madam Doris
Sure.
was here, there was someone asked a question about business people. And it's true, a lot of business people don't do anything because, everyone is positive when it comes to business. You should speak to an entrepreneur, you would find out that they are the most optimistic, people. But life happens to everyone. And so I know of this situation where, this person didn't do any SNIT, nothing, and times went hard. And this is a person that had diversified income streams, so not one business, but a couple of
Excuse
them.
me, can you please swap mics with Ibrahim just for to keep the inconvenience? Sure. Yeah.
A couple of them. Times went hard, and even paying for electricity and the basic needs became tough. By the grace of God, business has picked up after a while, and so the person is fine now. But imagine that didn't happen. And that's one of the reasons why you see people retire, and within 3-4 years, they are gone. Retirement is expensive. Don't let anyone lie to you. Why? Because at that point, you would have to spend a bit more on healthcare. The doctors may say, don't eat meat, don't eat this, don't eat that. It's not cheap. It is not cheap. At a point, my dad was spending 5,000 on groceries just because of health. So it's not cheap. So let's not assume that when I go into retirement, I'm not going to be going to work, wearing my nice shoes. There are other expenses that come up, and you need to be ready for that.
Mimi, this is a heartfelt one. You and I, or we can all appreciate the employment status within our country. It is tough for you to get a job in the public sector. It is even more competitive to be in the private sector. To be a sole proprietor, that is a whole ballgame because you need enough capital to stand these strenuous economic situations. When will these young people get jobs? And when will their employers say you are now fit for SNIT or whatever pension payments? When will you start accumulating enough? The last time, SNIT board was saying that if you retire and then you see less returns, don't complain. How many years have you worked and how much was contributed on your behalf? Is there a remedy to curb this long-awaited short money after retirement? Is there a way to start paying something for pensions whilst I'm unemployed or something? How can we fix some very good package for this for us upon retirement? Yeah.
Okay. So there's this illusion that one day you get money and you'll be able to pay all these things. It's not true. I've been working for 10 years, and I don't remember a moment where I felt, I've arrived. I have a lot
Too
of
much money. You never saw that. Hey.
Yes, too much. That doesn't happen. So I remember when I got my job at Access, which was my first actual job, I just decided that the savings habit is important. So the income wasn't good at that point, but I still put something down regularly. And that really helped build the habit so that when things improved, because the thing is that as your income level increases, your responsibilities would have gone up, you know. And so there's the likelihood that if you are just following enough, you will never do anything. For those of us who probably don't have jobs, a lot of people in Ghana, when they say they are unemployed, because I did it myself, when I said I was unemployed, I wasn't unemployed. I wasn't in what I wanted. So maybe you don't have a job, but you are selling shoes and you are making money. You need to start doing something for yourself. And I remember we spoke about personal pension, the micro pensions. These were introduced. The law has been, the new act covers everyone, every worker. There's no longer any excuse that, oh, I don't work under a company, so I couldn't do that. Even under the old law, you could still do something with SNIT. You can do a personal pension, depending on the institution that you want to do it with, in access as low as 100 Ghana cedis. This is something that most of us use for data, to just, you know, insult people online, laugh a bit, and all that, and it's gone. But this is for your future. So putting that down on a monthly basis can make a big difference. Look, I've seen people, so where I sit, I work with retirees, so those who have retired.
Yeah.
And I've seen how it makes a difference, just having a tier 3, having the SNIT, having the tier 2, having a tier 3, how it can make a difference. There are people that can earn as high as maybe 13,000 just from the extras, not SNIT. So if you are earning all those, if you've been deliberate about your retirement, you've put in place, and for retirement planning, I think insurance is important, investment is important, because nobody knows what is coming, you know. If you put in place all the plans, it's very likely that you're going to have a comfortable retirement. So I would encourage all of us, no matter where you are, the shoes you are selling, put something aside, pay yourself, and put something aside in your retirement plan. As things get better, you improve the effort you put in.
You would have to put your hands together for them all. It's a very nice round one. Round one. And we're going to round 2 of questioning. So we come back to the main issue. Why is it then so important for every single person in here to have interest in estate and gift planning? Why is this a panacea to securing a good future for our families and also our future? Mr. Ifa.
Let me begin with a story, an incident I handled. This gentleman at KNUST, the dad has passed on. The mom was the one financing the school fees. The mom, unfortunately, also died. Now, somebody, a relative, had taken up letters of administration to administer the mother's estate. And it included some money at the bank. I think at the time, the sum was about 40,000 cedis, and the gentleman needed about 4,000 to pay his school fees, and it wasn't coming. The executor wrote to the bank to have access to the money. But then the bank's position was that, you know, the administrator took the letters of administration with the father of the gentleman, and the father had died after the letters of administration. And so the bank wanted the surviving administrator to go back to the court and get a replacement before they will give them access to the money. So I wrote a letter to the bank that is not how it works. There are 2 administrators. If one passed on, the surviving one should be able to operate. And so they should give them access to the account. They quickly called them in and made the gentleman sign a signatory to the account and everything. He got the money to pay his. He was in his final year. Got the money to pay the school fees and was able to access the rest of the funds.
Sure.
Now, he went through all this wahala until he met me, and we were able to, straighten up things.
Yes.
So, if the mother had made a will before passing on, you see, or the mother had said that, look, you are of age, you are schooling, I'm aging, let me make you a signatory to my bank account so that when I'm not around, you can operate it. All this would not have happened. You see, so I'm using this to illustrate the point that estate planning is very critical, because if the gentleman had not had help, he would probably have dropped out of school at the final year after doing 3 years already. We don't know what he will have become. If he should become an armed robber, you and I will be at his mercy. So estate planning is very critical. It is just very critical. You need to make sure that in your absence, your dependents are catered for. There's something to keep them going. That is what I would say.
Let me just do a follow-up. Would you attest that the African setting, we haven't seen much of development and progress within a community, those within those very lower level income people, we find them struggling a lot. Do you think the deficiency of this knowledge has been the cause of all these multitudes of poverty and violence in these areas, because we seem not to have a way to transcend wealth from who made it to the rightful people who should own it, and it's being distractedly shared across people who don't deserve to bear it? Is this the cause of our poverty within Africa? Would you say this has been one of the causes?
I think it's partly so. The other part is that we have a very strong cultural base. Maybe the millennia may be shifting from that position, but we have a very strong cultural base. And we are making state laws to superimpose on this cultural structure. And so you have situations where the law says that, when a man dies and didn't make a will, but had just one house, that house should go to the surviving spouse and the children. And you have an Obusuapani who also comes in and says that we sold our cocoa farm to educate him, and he became what he is. And that house he built is for the family. You see, so we are making national laws and superimposing them on a very strong cultural belief system without much education. So what we are doing here is very important, very, very important, that we have a lot of education. We let people know that these are the laws when it comes to, we are still struggling with spousal property distribution simply because the culture is this way and the national law is this way. And we are not making effort to bridge the gap through education. So what is happening here is good. We need to keep it up. We need to get it even to especially the National House of Chiefs, for them to appreciate the new changes that the national laws are making to the culture, so that it will help. So yes, lack of education, but then also the strong cultural system we have is very strong. I'm telling you, when you may be living in Accra, you think that, we don't have anything. The day your father dies, that's when you know that we have culture. the family head will come with a host of family members from the village and tell you that we need the body because it's for us. And you also don't understand. It's my dad. You get it. And then you are speaking, nice English. And at the end of the day, they tell you that, oh yeah, this year, we need the body right now. Give it to us. So we have a very strong cultural system that we ignore whilst we are making our national laws. And we need to bridge the gap through education and programs like this.
Absolutely. It gives me a new topic to research on, law and tradition. We'll look at that. Messima, now you talked about the power attorney. I think Mr. Ifa said that. But now we have to understand some very critical legal documents, the power of attorney, the will, and the trust. Help us appreciate the essence of these three and why they should be part of us in any way, these three. Why?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So, like I said initially, when it comes to estate planning, we have tools that help us to plan our estates efficiently. One of them is the will.
Yeah.
We have the trust. Sometimes we have, you could have the power of attorney. We have what is called living wills or living trusts. That can also be used. As I mentioned earlier, the will dispose of your properties as you wish, and then can have instructions on who should deal with it and how it should be dealt with. The thing about the will is that it can only take effect after your death, not before. So we only have effect after you have died, and that's the only time that the properties can be distributed and the wishes in it can be followed. Then we have the trust. The trust is essentially you appointing somebody to deal with your properties or some of your property. It doesn't have to be all of it. It could be a particular one. It could be a group of properties. You give it to a particular person and give them instructions on how they should deal with it. What I'd like to say here is that as the name goes, it should be somebody that you really trust, whether it's a legal practitioner or somebody outside the legal practice. It should be somebody that you really trust, because essentially you are giving the properties to them that they will hold in trust. So on the surface of it, it might look like they are the ones who own the property or they are the ones who have the property. But behind that is you giving instructions, specific instructions on how you want it to be dealt with. When it comes to a trust, it doesn't necessarily have to take effect from the time that you pass away. It can, but it can also be in effect whilst you are still alive. And it can also be in effect for years, decades after you have gone, because certain trusts will give instructions such that it has to take care of your children and your children's children. So there can be a property, for example, that you give to someone to maybe rent out. And the instruction is that every year or every 6 months or whichever time stipulation you give, the money should be paid to maybe your children or should go into like an educational fund for your children or your children's children or whatever it is that you desire. And when it comes to the power of attorney, like my colleague said, it is a document that is giving power. You are giving your power or part of your power to somebody to act in different capacities for you or a specific capacity for you. Let me talk a little about living wills or living trusts. Mm-hmm. So for example, you asked about, okay, you are sick now and then you have to make decisions, or you are incapacitated, or you are disabled at some point. I think that some people can foresee, depending on what the situation is, maybe you have a particular ailment and you know that at a particular time you will not be able to do specific things. Maybe you will lose ability to maybe use your own hands to sign, or you can't move around as much and all of that. You can give specific instructions in a document. You can use the power of attorney to give instructions that maybe when it gets to this time, this is what I want. Concerning my health care, I want money taken from a particular account, or I don't want money taken from here. Or at this point, I don't want it could be anything depending on what you desire. So if you can foresee that, you can write that. Even if you don't foresee it, like my sister said, life happens to all of us. So sometimes you can't really tell. So you can have these instructions set down that in the event of maybe illness, when I'm incapacitated, I have a disability, I suffer from a particular disease, this is what I want, and this is the person I want to handle that. Maybe there's a particular time that you can't take care of your dependents as much as you would like to. You can put it in the document and say that, I want this particular person to take care of them, or your parents, or whatever it is. So these are all extensions of estate planning, not just the will. You can have the trust, you can have the living wills, you can have the power of attorney, so that you can deal with your estate planning. It's generally putting your desires on paper, the way you want it, what you have, what you own. Some people say, okay, I don't have a big estate, so I don't want to do a will, or I don't want to have a trust, but that really doesn't matter. Even if you have one car, you have a small amount of money, whatever it is that you have, or you have other wishes, other desires. People have ways that they want to be buried when they are gone. Like my learned colleague was saying, people are going to come from the village and going to say that the body is ours, give it to us. But you can have a document that states that when I die, this is how. Some people want to just be cremated. Some people want their bodies to be buried in Accra. Others want it in their hometown. So to avoid all the drama, the back and forth, whether you are alive or whether you are gone, you can put the wishes on paper, make it very clear. This is what I want. This is how I want it. This is the person I want to handle it. And then that can be done in the way that you desire. So there's no contention.
Wonderful. This is where I ask the very uncomfortable questions, okay? At what point must one intend to will something? Mr. Ifa mentioned that mostly wills are centered around immovable properties. However, we have some petty movable things like watches, shoes. These are petty, but they are valuable, as somebody's hard-earned property in here. And is it really relevant to will these things? I mean, who wills shoes and shirts? But what's relevant to be willed by a young man? Should they wait till they clock the chance to own lands and buildings? And how do they go about them? I think a pragmatic look will do. How can we engage anyone who's involved to help us with a will, and what must we will, at what quantity and value?
Okay, so when it comes to wills, it's essentially your estate. And your estate is everything that you own, which is movable and immovable. Everything that you own is part of your estate. And I think you asked several questions all in one, so let me try and take them differently. When do you need to make a will?
Yes.
Okay, so for a will to be valid, you have to be of full age. What is full age? 18 and above. So from the age of 18, in fact, you can start making your will. And what you need to understand is, okay, you're saying, oh, now I don't have much. Maybe I just have a little. I have, like you said, one watch, maybe one shoes, one shoe. The thing with wills is that you can constantly amend them. You can constantly. So as you go along, as you acquire more properties, you can keep adding it, keep deciding what goes to who. But it's important. You see, it's more of building the culture or the habit of knowing that if I'm not around, this is how what I have will be disposed of. It's not so much what you have or the extent or the size of what you have, but just the culture and the habit of it, setting clear boundaries that, I may have just this amount. You see, you may be a young, you say, oh, I don't have much. Maybe you have 2,000 cedis. And you say, oh, it's not much. I mean, why should I will this? But that 2,000 cedis can save somebody that you wanted to save, a dependent, somebody who needs that money. So essentially, it's about building the culture, building the habit of doing it. So as young as 18, you can make your will. Pragmatically, it is prudent. It is prudent to involve a legal practitioner in making the will, because the will is governed. Making the will the right way is governed by statutes of the nation, things that make it valid, because you can't just make a will. It has to follow certain procedure. You have to make sure that it's signed in the presence of witnesses who see that you're signing it and all of that. So there are processes and steps to take. So it's pragmatic and it's efficient that you will do it with a legal practitioner. So everything that you have, you can will it. Yeah.
Is it possible to will something you don't own? For example, my mother's car, I want to will it, I know that when she passes away, I'll own the car.
Yes.
Can I will my father's car?
Absolutely not. You can only will things that you own. So you can't will things that belong to the family. So if, for example, if you're a custodian, you can't will something. If somebody puts you as a trustee for their property, you can't will what they've given you because it's not yours. So you can only will the things that you own as an individual. Yes.
And what does it cost for one to own a will? That is one thing that I think you all want to know, right? You want to know, right? How much does it cost to have a will? Is there a charge to it? Has it got a price tag?
To have your will done for you.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I can't help you with that. Maybe we can ask my learned friend. I'm sure he does.
Oh, okay.
I work in the public sector, so I don't often do that.
All right.
Let me chip in this. If you want to make your will at home, you can do that. It's advisable to get legal help, but you can also do it at home. All that you do is to list your personal properties, what belongs to you. If you are your church treasurer and their money is with you, it's not part of your
He's a treasurer.
the things you can will. So you leave those ones out. Take your own personal properties, your mobile phone, your laptop. If you have a car, you bought some land somewhere. If no land, don't worry. You bought shares when one of the companies was floated and all that. So you list those ones carefully. And then you take a decision. This one, who do I want to give it to? The shares I bought, who do I want to give it to? So you state. And please give clear identification of items and people so that there's no ambiguity. You don't say, I give my laptop, a Dell laptop to my senior brother. Meanwhile, you have 3 or 4 senior brothers. So just be specific. My senior brother called Michael or something like that. So once you've done all these things, then you get 2 witnesses after you have signed. And when you are making a will, you cannot write anything after your signature. The moment you are done and you sign, anything appearing below your signature is invalid. So make sure you've listed everything, you sign it, and you must sign it in the presence of 2 witnesses who must also witness it in your presence. And then you have a will. Now, every will must be deposited at the High Court. So once you've done that, you make about 4 copies. And you write that this is your will. This is the will of Madame, Mrs. So-and-so, who lives in this house or at this place. Once you've written that on the envelope, you get... on each envelope, normally we do 4 copies. On each envelope, you must have your passport size picture fixed to it. And then you take it to the High Court. The High Court will do what we call sealing of the envelope so that anytime it is open, we can tell. So they will seal it. The sealing of the 4 will cost you about 200 Ghana cedis. The sealing of the 4 envelopes. And the official charge for depositing it with the High Court is 50 cedis. So if you are doing your calculations, 4 passport pictures, the 4 A4 or A3, A2 envelopes you use, the sealing of the will, about 200 cedis plus 250. So you see that it's not even up to 500 Ghana cedis. That is if you are doing it yourself at home. Now, when you want a lawyer to do it for you, then the only addition is the lawyer's fees. And that one, you see me in chambers.
You know what? Someone was saying, oh, then we can will something.
But I mean, if you have a lawyer friend who is willing to do it for you for free, I mean, the person can do it. Yes. Normally, the lawyer's fees depend on the extent of the estate. Definitely, if you invite me to do your will and we have 10 houses in the estate, you have 14, luxury cars and all that, definitely, I must benefit.
Put your hands together for him.
So
that's candid, yeah, sure.
The lawyer's fees normally depend on the extent of the estate. Other than that, if you are doing it yourself, then the cost is less than 500 cedis. Yes.
Great. Let me just give, Mensima has one last question before I move to Ibrahim and then Mimi. Mensima, I have done the will already. And then I willed everything to my brother. But I realized that he's becoming very stubborn of late. And I have to change that thing before anything happens. Can you be changing your will based on sentiment because this person is doing this and I want to just change? Is it allowed for one to be doing those things?
Absolutely. Amendments are allowed. You can change your will every week, change it every month, every year, depending on your sentiments, all of that. In fact, sometimes you can will something to somebody and the person passes away before you. So in that case, you can, change that and then give it to somebody else that you want. So it's your wishes, your desires. So once you decide to make the will, you can make it any way, anyhow, make any amendments that you do. In fact, I know a man, he said he had left some things to his son. The son did something, I think, embezzled his money. He said he's disowned the son, took him out of the will. After 2 years, the son came to beg, he put him back in the will. So, I mean, back and forth, you can do that.
They say children obey your parents in the Lord. It will shock you when they read the will.
Okay, sure.
All right.
Let me add this quickly. There are some people you cannot take out of your will.
Mm-hmm.
Your spouse, if the spouse is alive, you can't take the spouse out of your will. Your child, you cannot. And if your parents are alive, you can also take them out of your will. Now, when it is so important that you do so, then you must provide a reason in the will. I did a will for a man. He, like you mentioned, he had disowned one of the sons, and he didn't want him in a will. So he indicated that my son did this to me, and for over 15 years I've disowned him. He's not been my son, so he gets nothing out of my will. So if there, for any reason, I also did a will for a gentleman. He wanted to travel out of the country with the children. And when they did the DNA, it turned out that the last two were not his children. So when he asked me to do the will, he took the wife out. And he asked me to put a reason there that he's done DNA and 2 of the kids are not his children. So he doesn't want to give the wife anything. Yes, you must have a reason. But if you don't, then you cannot take your spouse, your child, or your parent who is alive out of your will. There are certain things you cannot put in your will. For instance, insurance. If you have an insurance policy, it doesn't matter what you state in your will. It is what is with the insurance company that operates and not what is in your will. So if you have Smith, you have made a private retirement plan with an insurance company. What is in your will is subject to what you have told the insurance company. So like my sister said, if for several years you don't go and amend the beneficiaries, and in your will you say that I have an insurance policy and I give it to this person, and that person is not known to the insurance policy, what is with the insurance policy or the insurance company prevails over what is in your will. So these are the only things you need to also take note of if you decide to make your will at home.
Yes. Great. Let's go to Ibrahim. Ibrahim, with your background in insurance, if you were, what are some of the current activities that you are undertaking. It can be with a CFLE or anything you're doing to ensure that this issue of inherited poverty, we just eradicate it. What are some of the steps you are taking in your own corner as an insurance person?
Thank you. So this is, of course, one of the activities we are engaged in to partner institutions like the Peters Institution to educate the public on financial wellness, financial literacy, because as he rightly said, if the level of education on finance is not there, then a lot more people will make bad decisions on their finances. So first of all, you need to educate the citizens about financial decisions before you even go ahead to, pitch your product or sell your product to them. So we are doing that. In addition to that, we're also bringing about policies that are tailored towards specific markets. So we acknowledge that there may be markets with, high level of income, low level of income. We have the middle class as well. So we are ensuring that we are bringing out products that are tailored specifically towards those, segments of the population. Ghana has about 80% informal sector, right? So no matter how formalized you want your organizations to be, you need to also have the conscious that indeed there are about 80% of people who are just selling in Makola or, selling at Abosokai or, selling cocoa or kose by the roadside, who may not know your formal organization. So if you are bringing up a product, you need to put these people in the context of those things. So we're engaging in a lot more advocacy, a lot more, financial education. In addition to that, bringing up products that are tailored towards these specific markets as well. So currently, that's something that we are doing.
I'm just doing a lookup for my friends here. Is there something for young students, students who just got to school that they could have secured themselves, anything like that, cooking?
Yeah, thank you. So there's a product we just launched called the Smart Save. So basically, the Smart Save will give anyone an opportunity to save any amount they want to save. The minimum is about 50 Ghana cedis, but at the convenience of whenever you want to save. So it's not like a monthly contribution. You can save every day, or you can save every week, or you can save every month. Because we take into cognizance that we are also into retirement, right? Yeah. Because there's an established rule that when you retire, you need about 20 times your income that you are staying on at the moment. So for instance, if you are a student or you are working in an organization and being paid like 2,500 Ghana cedis, yearly will give you about 30,000, right? You need about 20 times that amount to survive in retirement. So it means that when you go on retirement, you need about 600,000 Ghana cedis to survive in every year. So if you don't put financial decisions at the forefront, then you are going to really struggle, as Mimi said, in your retirement. A lot more time. The question has been, how much do I need to save in order that I can retire comfortably? There are a number of questions, when you go for programs like this, people ask, okay, so how much do I need to save? Do I need to save 20 Ghana cedis every day to survive? Do I need to save 30 Ghana cedis to survive? It depends on your lifestyle. But as the good book said, there's nothing new under the sun. So financial analysts, actuarial analysts, economists and bankers have actually propounded a certain rule that if you go by it, at least you should be able to live comfortably in retirement. They call that 50-30-20. That says, for any income you have, ensure that you are separating it into three. 50% into your needs. So what you need, like your rent, like your bills, 50% goes into it, right? 30% goes into your wants. So as young as we are, we want to chill, we want to buy all the nice things we want. So about 30% go into that. And 20% goes into your savings for either your retirement or your savings for yourself. So as young as we are, we should have this conscious rule in our minds that for every income we are earning, we are separating them into three and then apportioning them into how much you go into our needs, how much you go into our wants, and how much you go into our savings. As you age, it also changes because as you age, your needs may be more, your dependents may be more. So it can also convert to about 70-20-10, and then you look at that. But that's more technical. But as young as we are, we need to look at the 50-30-20 rule that says that put 50% into your needs, 30% into your wants, and 20% into your savings. And that will generally guide us into our financial planning decisions.
Great. Great, Ibrahim. Let's go, Mimi. Mimi, as our young friends here, we are approaching retirement. You know, if you are staying under the age of 20, 25, you know, you have a lot of years ahead of you. But how does retirement planning from today become our stepping ground to overcome this inherited poverty we're talking about? How does retirement planning right from these very early ages help us to escape this issue of poverty?
So let me just highlight that in Africa we have what we call black tax, right? So that is where you are expected to take care of, you know, your family.
Yes.
And basically the reason why that exists is because those people don't have financial fallbacks. So as he said, we sold our cocoa farm for you, so you are now our investment. How do we break that cycle? It's for each of us as individuals to take our retirement into our own hands. And not just that, but continue with estate planning. Make sure that we are passing on assets to the next generation. That is how we can break that cycle. I remember a friend of mine moved to the UK to work with Goldman Sachs. And when she joined, she thought, oh, we all came, so we are all the same. The white folks had their parents leave them assets, properties that were generating rent. And we, guess what? We're starting from scratch. So this is very important, especially for our generation. It's going to be tough because we are going to be dealing with black tax. We are still going to be supporting family, supporting children, dealing with ourselves and making sure that we leave enough. But we need to break that cycle. If we want Ghana to become any better, let's forget about the politicians and own our own, you know, life and generations after us. Normally we'll say that as soon as you start working, you should start setting aside something for yourself towards your retirement. And by working, I don't mean an organization must employ you. As soon as you start making some money, start putting something towards your retirement. Why? The younger you are, the better, the more likely you are to retire with a good amount of money. I'm sure we've heard compound interest, but it really, really works. Compound interest really works. There were some managers of some institutions who were doing provident funds then, before this whole new act took effect. So when the new law came, they found a way of keeping that provident fund instead of taking out. Almost all of them, if not all of them, retired as millionaires. And today, some of them are taking as much as 30,000 just from the provident fund alone. So these things are real. The fact that you are always seeing broke retirees doesn't mean they aren't the rich ones. They are there. So as soon as you start working, start putting in place some kind of planning. And I always say that retirement planning is not just about putting money aside. Your career planning affects the kind of retirement you have. There are places that you work, they wouldn't pay one cent for you. It's on you. So all these are questions. A lot of the time we get the offer, we just go straight to the take home is good. And we don't care about the rest. But these things have long-term implications. So you should be interested in, are they paying my SNIT? Are they paying my tier 2? If I have 2 offers, is one giving me a tier 3? Are there additional benefits that would end up supporting me in the long term? All these things are important. Your family planning, as you are giving birth, 5, 10, remember that it's going to have, you know, some implications. So retirement planning is broad. I mean, we talk about the financial aspect a lot of times, but there are other factors that go into ensuring whether you have one or not. Unfortunately, we can't talk about all that, but it's very important that you keep on educating yourself. Now we are in 2023. There are so many resources online. I'm sure if you type Peter's name, you will see a lot. The last time I Googled my name, I've said a lot of things. I'm sure Isaka and everyone else has said. So go online, Learn. If you still need information, I'm sure you can easily access any one of us. Information is power. Educate yourself and put in place a plan. And be careful. Sometimes some of us have good intentions, but we end up putting our money in the wrong places, and we'll still end up not retiring well. So choosing the right product, the right things to put your money into is very important as well. So see a financial advisor if you know that is not your forte.
Put your hands together for the next people. It's been wonderful thus far, and you've had it all. You know, I stood here representing you, my client. If there's something I didn't talk about, you can draw my attention. I'll give you the microphone to talk about yourself. Yes, my friend, please come closer to me, okay? I'll grant you a microphone to talk.
Okay, so my question is to Mr. Isaka. He made mention of Smart Save, where you can have some savings as a young person. Is it going to be like the savings accounts where the bank takes something from your account whilst depositing, so that in case if I should stop depositing for some time, am I going to go into negatives, or I'll get more interest? I want to get clear information on that.
Yes, depositor.
Thank you. So, not to run into the risk of advertising my company too much, this is also a normal savings, investment, retirement account. So once you make a deposit, the money is divided into a savings account and a retirement account. In the savings account, of course, you are going to earn some interest, but it's going to be in instruments that are very liquid. If I say liquid, I mean in very short-term instruments like the treasury bill or the money market instruments, so that when you need the money on your savings, you can at least access that. In addition to that, we also have the retirement account. So if you pay 50 cedis, what's going to happen is you're going to have about 150 cedis in a savings account, and then the 250 cedis in a retirement account. Why is this important? We know that immediately you may need funds. You may want to come into your account, but we are also planning for your future for you, or we are helping you plan for the future. That's why we save the rest of the 250 cedis in a retirement account. It's a normal account. You can do a deposit into the account. You can do a direct debit into the account. You can do a Momo transfer into the account. You can pay by cash also into the account. So that's how the policy runs. It's not going to run into the negatives. We don't invest in instruments that put your money in the negative effect. We also ensure that at least at every time, in point in time, the money you put in has some interest. Maybe mention compound interest, for instance. Every month it compounds. So the interest you earn also earn interest. So if you put 200 Ghana cedis, it earns interest over 20 cedis. The next time, your money will earn interest on the 200 Ghana cedis and then the 20 cedis as well. So when you're coming for it, at least you have a stronger bargaining, purchasing power, bargaining power on your money.
Great. So let's put our hands together for ourselves and also the response from Isaka.